Hi everyone, I'm Zen, your astrologer, and welcome to another timeless pick a card reading with the subject Your Spiritual Path. And in this reading, we take a look at the past, present, future, guidance, and also the spiritual archetype and your spiritual mission in this life. The reason why I have chosen this subject is that no matter how strong someone is, no matter how intensely they're aligned to their faith, their mission, and everything which has to do with spirituality, still there are some times in life when all of us need a little bit of guidance, perhaps a confirmation, or perhaps to listen to messages from beyond the invisible, so to speak. Get a little bit of inspiration and, of course, nurture for our souls. Especially those of us who, for example, also do this kind of work like tarot or offer guidance to other people or simply just do their own thing because they're so very immersed in whatever they're doing, experiencing, living. It's pretty challenging and difficult to offer the same kind of guidance, advice, information, or any kind of spiritual help to the self as you do for other people, exactly because of the subjectivity. So it's always very helpful when an external source like another person, a YouTube channel, another spiritualist or channeler or whatever offers you some kind of guidance or an overview of your situation. And this is really helpful because they're not living in it, they're not immersed, they can be objective and they can just channel what comes through. So I do hope that this pick a card reading will do exactly that and just offer you a little bit of inspiration, guidance, or perhaps confirmation and reassurance. The instructions for this pick a card are like always. Just choose a number, a pile of cards which sparks up your intuitive senses the most, and then simply jump to the interpretation of the pile. This is the kind of pick a card where perhaps more than one pile can appeal and be valid for you personally. Now, after these being said, let's begin with the interpretation of all of the 5 piles. Thank you so much for listening and being here, and enjoy. For those of you who have chosen the first pile, your cards are the Ace of Coins reversed, the Three of Coins, the Lovers, and the Empress. The first card that opens the reading is the Ace of Coins, and this card speaks about your past and everything that basically took place in your spiritual journey but is already behind you. It belongs to the past. So this Ace of Coins in reverse position is a rather uncomfortable card because generally speaking, the big picture, it represents that you've always been a very deeply spiritual person. You have always found a very strong fascination with everything that belongs to the spirit, the realm of the spirit, philosophy, religion, and most importantly perhaps psychology. So an applied, an earthly way where we can use spiritual knowledge, where we can use experience and this know-how so that all of this can serve us not just on a soul level, but also in our earthly journeys. So you might have been someone who didn't just study or use it as self-empowerment, as something to believe in, or simply trying to make sense of the meaning of life, existence, the universe, the divine, etc. But you've also been someone who tried to find a very practical means to do something really positive with it. So this represents psychology, parapsychology, how our minds, feelings, emotions, thoughts, thought patterns, the unconscious influences everything that takes place in our lives. But naturally there is also a part of it which is not practical at all, because it's simply a matter of faith and subjectivity, your own personal and unique distinctive human experience, which from a very personal perspective represents your philosophies, your worldview, your principles, your ideals. And that is exactly why this Ace of Coins is reversed, because the Ace of Coins represents normality. It represents how our lives are with all of their structures. So this also represents external reality, society, the world in general, the times that we live in, the uniqueness and distinctiveness of the era basically that we are born into. And this was the first contradiction between your faith, your principles, your own personal philosophies and ideals, and what was possible, available, and basically how the world was in the past, and that might not have changed all that much, to be totally honest. So one of the distinctiveness of our times, which was a total contradiction to who you were, your beliefs, and what you wanted to do with your life and with your spirituality, of course, was greed and a very, very rigid, professional, economical, and material custom, tradition, rules, and regulations which basically governed everything in material life. So very many times you felt a lot of limitations. You felt that you simply don't have anyone to work with because people are so very greedy. Society is so very greedy. People are simply blinded by matters of money, finances, profit, material security, and all of that. And even though in itself, spirituality, the world of the spirit, especially those areas which sparked up your interest, psychology, parapsychology, and all of that, are not a direct contradiction, because basically they can have a lot of practical applications, and they can really, really improve anyone's life, lifestyle, and basically earthly existence. But the strong and heavy imbalances basically just disconnected people, society from everything spiritual, and they were way too immersed into material existence, the big joys of life, the comfort and security of having earthly power. And this kind of hindered you quite a lot, because you might not had the means to get diplomas, university degrees, or studies, or you simply had to invest your time, effort, and energy into something else, another source of survival, source of income. Maybe you had to take a non-spiritual career, or it can also be as simple as you simply didn't find the greed, the sufficient greed inside of you to gather, to fight for more than you need, to save a lot, or to make business, profit, etc. So this strong material imbalance, which dominated the times that you were born into, really, really hindered you one way or another. And I'm not saying that you couldn't cope or that you were miserable, not at all, because this Ace of Coins is still an ace even though it's reversed. So you did have moments of glory. You might have had even moments when you were materially well off. You might have even had moments when you were extremely powerful from a material perspective. But the problem is that whenever you immersed into material life way too intensely, you felt a massive lack, a void from a spiritual and soul level emotional perspective. So nothing really resonated with who you were, no lifestyle, because you might have tried even going against your faith, your principles. You might have tried to change or to live like most people, but nothing really resonated. Whenever you embraced spirituality, then the material part of your life didn't work out that well. Whenever you embraced the material part, then it was, the spiritual side which caused you a lot of unhappiness. And you didn't really find a middle path, a balance, a common ground where you could have both. So ultimately, maybe this Ace of Coins reversed represents a huge risk, a huge leap of faith that you took, perhaps not even so long ago, maybe a year ago, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, when you just made the choice to break free from the patterns, to basically follow your heart, follow your spirit, follow your soul and your instincts. And you might have abandoned or given up or perhaps even lost. But when I say lost, it might be due to an external event like a crisis or a misfortune, but your soul asked for this. So that's why it's not all that much exterior. If karma entered your life and you lost something, you lost your material stability, job, money, house, income, etc., well, it wasn't any kind of bad karma or punishment or misfortune, but basically your soul made this choice that this no longer serves you, and you had to take a leap of faith and start a totally different lifestyle where even though you didn't have the security of tomorrow, you knew that you don't have anything to offer you a well-being, stability, even the basic minimal, yet you still set out on your journey, and definitely it wasn't easy, it was hard. Maybe you had the biggest down moments in your life, but the fact that you were still living your truth, that you were honest with yourself, you were honest with your soul, and you weren't forcing something on yourself that you didn't agree with, a lifestyle, or being caught up in work relationship, contracts, duties, obligations, money, saving, etc. You freed yourself from all of that. So even if you had really down moments where maybe you were 1,000,000% zero materially, you had absolutely nothing to your name, or you just couldn't find a job, or you couldn't set your own business up, still, even though physically it was worse, much worse, but on a soul level it still felt much more right than anything before. And this is exactly the reason why the Ace of Coins was reversed all the time, that you just had to try out everything for you not to have regrets when this moment, when this massive leap of faith enters your life. Now the Three of Coins is the present. So this is a very strong energy where you are working, you're thinking, you're building, you're determined, you're focused, you're ambitious, you're doing something really, really big for yourself. And this is on all levels, like soul purpose, material life, earthly existence, physical body. So you're basically working towards your stability, your well-being, healing yourself, becoming powerful, becoming proficient, and also being a positive influence out there in the world, one way or another, whatever you're working towards. So in the present moment, you might be in a huge, huge work in progress where you're truly building up your future stability. And this is both spiritual, this is also material, this is also getting connected to other people out there. This is also learning new things, but at the same time teaching new things perhaps, or inspiring other people. This also has a lot of down-to-earth elements to it, where maybe you are actually investing in your long-term future, for example, pension and everything that has to do with insurance, social security. Some of you might also want to own a place, not necessarily a house, Even though for some of you a house or a space of your own or an upgraded space of your own is very important, but others might want to invest in a land or just a piece of property. Some of you might not even see why, but you just feel this calling that you need to own a tiny piece of land for whatever reason. Other people might even be setting up their business, or if it's already set up, you just need to invest all the effort, the work, and find new connections, clients, customers. Or others are just trying to find a proper balance between work and time for yourself so you can do all your spiritual things. Especially if your work is like something artistic, creative, maybe you're self-employed, or even if you're not self-employed, you just want to find a job, a livelihood, an income, where even if it's not like a big spiritual thing, at least what you do gives you peace of mind, or you do it with someone special like a partner, your best friend, a family member. So it is basically doing your thing, your job, work in a very harmonious way, where it's based on cooperation, friendship, understanding, and not basically slavery. And you can also invest your intellect, your creativity, your uniqueness into it. It offers you the possibility. So that is why regardless of how this three of coins plays out, it's really, really good and positive and harmonious. You might have moments of, let's say, hardship or stagnation or procrastination, but still, the present, whatever you're doing right now with your spiritual life, you're grounding it, you're working towards something very important and materially stable for the future. So I would definitely say that you are on the right path. You are on track, you have all the right goals, all the right ideas, and you're doing it. So it's not just an idea which will never complete itself. You are actually doing it. You're in the middle of a work in progress, and you're doing absolutely fine. This Lover's card represents the future, where your journey is taking you. And this Lover's card, which is also the sign of Gemini in astrology, it means either a union, a connection, an alliance, a partnership with someone extremely important who is going to be an active part of your long-term future, perhaps even the rest of your life. Now, if you're single and looking and have always dreamed of a relationship, etc. Or maybe if this Ace of Coins reversed at the beginning of the past also represents you leaving a relationship behind, well then definitely it makes a lot of sense. That has to be replaced with the most ideal person, with someone who is just like you, because that is why out of all the cards, it was the Lovers that appeared to signify partnership. Gemini the twins, one is exactly like the other, especially mentally, way of thinking, values. But of course, each and every side, each and every partner brings their distinctiveness and differences into this alliance, and perhaps it will be the differences which will mutually help one another, because wherever you're not good at something, you have your weak spot, you have your lack of certain interest. There your partner has their strong points, which comes to them naturally, easily. They're really good at that, and vice versa. Wherever your partner is not very strong, wherever your partner has certain weaknesses or lacks, or basically not interested in a specific area of life or whatever that is where you're very strong, proficient. It comes really easily to you. So this alliance will definitely complete you, not just spiritually, romantically, emotionally, but it is also what you truly need to have in your life to be complete. To live your destiny, to live whatever that Ace of Coins reverse has set you up ever since childhood. And whatever you're working for right now, this Three of Coins, may that be job or your business, your project, or simply getting your material life back on track. One way or another, it will connect you to this partner who is there to stay. And as I said, it won't even feel like, that massive mythical love story where Prince Charming comes down on a Pegasus and proposes, but it will feel like meeting your twin. So basically, knowing yourself will be knowing this person and vice versa. So basically, you won't even need to have that big, emotionally steamy, romantic phase of your relationship. It will be almost like, where have you been all my life? Because I know you from the first second I met you. I know who you are. I know what your life story is. I know who you are on the inside. Where have you been? And this is also, whenever you're gonna meet this person, that's how you know that it's them. Even with the very first communication, they're gonna say either specific words or something which is very strongly specific to you. So even from the first hi, you're gonna feel like this person knows you so deeply and profoundly, and your reply or response is gonna trigger the same thing for them. So it will be on basically autopilot, all of it. You will immediately feel like you've known this person for a lot of lifetimes. Of course, for those of you who are in an established bond, this may be your actual partner, in the sense that something truly wonderful is gonna happen to them in their lives. Something which has to do with them individually and not basically your union. But of course, after whatever that big event takes place in their lives, it's gonna also affect you in the most positive way possible. Like, for example, an inheritance, or they win something, they get a big position, an offer. But it can also be the case that it has nothing to do personally with your life partner. Maybe it is a business partnership or a big opportunity for you to join another person, like a soulmate or someone who has a karmic debt from previous existences, in which situation it is going to be you who helps your partner. It is going to be you who basically makes your partner's dreams come true. And you doing this and being able to do this for your partner is going to basically make your whole spiritual journey feel like it was the biggest blessing that could possibly ever happen to you. And finally, this last card, the Empress, represents your spiritual archetype. Well, this Empress is very important because she is the symbol of Venus. And this means a couple of different things. Well, first of all, Venus is the goddess of love and beauty. So a part of your spiritual journey is to be a partner. So if you're single and looking, well, that means that fated love, that fated union is definitely part of your karma, destiny, karmic journey, spiritual path, everything. It is going to be a very, very important step for you to take, because you will only be complete when that partnership enters your life. You may be someone who is created to be a loving partner, an inspirational muse for your future lover. For example, if your partner is an artist and you are a very ingenious person, if you are someone who can just dream up anything with the help of your imagination, also Venus, well, you can already see how this partnership is gonna be a heaven on earth. But at the same time, this Empress card means self-worth, which kind of means that both you and this fated connection, regardless if it's in a romantic sense or just alliance, you are kind of not complete without one another. And if you have issues of self-worth, and where sometimes it just doesn't make sense because you believe in yourself, you know what healthy self-worth is and you're trying your hardest, but you still feel that from a very unexplainable reason, something just doesn't add up. You cannot embody it. You cannot express who you are, no matter what you do. Even if every single day you do all the right things, you apply all the psychological and spiritual tactics to heal your self-worth, and it doesn't work, well, this is why. Because there is a void inside of you, and there is no healing that, because you're not broken, you're just incomplete. And that other person is the same, so if it's romantically, then it's very clear what it means. If it's like a professional or just a soul alliance, then regarding your spirituality, your faith, and whatever it is that you do professionally, you need this. Because where one arm, one head, one heart is not as strong to an alliance, well, that changes absolutely everything. You have no idea of the power you are gonna unleash. May it be simply productive power, creational power, business, material power, when you guys are gonna be aligned. And another expression of this Empress, well, your spiritual archetype is someone who doesn't stay in the clouds, in the ivory tower, who just dreams, reads, philosophizes, learns, etc. But you're someone who has to apply that in a very physical, material and practical sense. And this is why you might be probably interested in psychology, because that is a very practical means where the material and the spiritual meet, and the fusion of the two can do a lot of good things out there. And this Empress also represents that maybe you are using physical elements to tune up your work, your spirituality. For example, plant medicine. The Empress can very well represent that. You're maybe into alternate medicine, massage, or any kind of physical therapy, aromatherapy, for example, sound, nature, even technology. So this Empress represents that you are not someone who is supposed to distance themselves from the physical, from the earthly, but quite the opposite. By being very strongly immersed into it and working with it, you just make sure that there is much more spirit in it than basically without your work, without your presence. And if we need to translate this Empress into a spiritual path, well, this can be shamanism, druidism, the sacred feminine, even Wicca, nature worshipping, or finding your inspiration from nature. It can also be something very artistic and creative, through which you give birth to your own unique spirituality. And ultimately, those of you who do not have children yet, this Empress can also mean that your spiritual game, symbolically speaking, is definitely gonna be tuned up once you become a parent. But this is where, regardless of your physical gender, it is this divine feminine, Venusian energies that are very much alive in you and fuel you with everything. And Venus can be very, very idealistic. It is all about the principles. It is all about love, unconditional love. And ultimately, all of those principles, ideals, and love have to be expressed physically. And the way to do that is live by example. And that is exactly what you are doing. So the guidance for you guys is very simple. You are already working on it. You're doing it. You're in the middle of it. There is no turning back. This will definitely propulse you towards your future, towards what is destined. So keep on strong on your path. Keep on doing what you're doing. Believe in yourself. Believe in your work. Charge for your work as much as you can, because you do need the money. And ultimately stay open to meeting new people, because perhaps one of your future connections is that very special person or a group of people, maybe a company, who knows what that is, that alliance which has to put you in this position of power to make you that empress. This is not something very easy, especially physically speaking, because you have to invest time and energy into it. It involves waiting, it involves going with the flow. Whenever the flow is blocked, let's say collectively, then of course you suffer as well. Whenever the flow is ongoing, on track, then you have to do everything you can to seize as many opportunities, business-wise, let's say, as you can. But perhaps spiritually speaking, on a soul level, it's not as hard, because you have mountains of inner work and any kind of work that you could possibly imagine behind you already. So your life experience and your fortitude, spiritually speaking, is fueling you, and it is almost like a well without a bottom. So there's so much power, inspiration, fantasy, creativity, imagination, inspiration in there. So all you need to do is just believe and keep on doing what you're doing, stay consistent, and also be kind and gentle to yourself. For those of you who have chosen the second pile, your cards are the Four of Coins reversed, Judgment, Six of Wands, and the Moon card. The Four of Coins represents the past, the Judgment your present, the Six of Wands the future of your spiritual path, and this Moon represents your archetype and your mission in this life. Now the Four of Coins reversed in past position doesn't just represent the past in this existence, but there is also a very, very strong energy from your previous life, or perhaps from more previous existences, the cumulus of them. Now, first of all, what this tells us, that you have always been a soul who was very, very deeply into spiritual science. So this means that it's not as much about blind faith and religion, but it is more about study and understanding the world, understanding the divine manifested, and what all of that means and involves, and most importantly, the power and the advantages that it offers a person who is into that from a very down-to-earth perspective. Now, if we translate this, it can mean that you were, in your previous lives, a very relevant, knowledgeable, powerful, influential, for example, alchemist. Just think about the Middle Ages, what great role alchemy played in so very many different branches of European and not just philosophies. That was basically what science was in that time, and it was also very controversial and dangerous to practice it. It can also be astrology, but when I say astrology, don't think about modern astrology. Think about someone like John Dee. Think about someone like Nostradamus. So basically, yes, think about all the knowledge, details, the practical side of this, but more importantly, the power and social influence that it gave you. Then, of course, think about the Renaissance period, where pseudoscience and science shook hands, and something so very unique and human-oriented was born from them. And ultimately think about the 1700s, the partisan split, the discovery of Uranus, when science and spiritual philosophies split and parted ways. One was a symbolic interpretation of the world, the other was more empirical. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that you were part of all of these. You were an active player. Now this doesn't mean that you have to identify a big name who influenced the occult world, the philosophical world, the spiritual world. Because don't forget, the biggest names were actually concealed in shadows. They were hidden. They never actually signed anything under their names. They were counselors. They were people who pulled all the strings and triggers, but from the background. But this also means a lot of power that you possessed, a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And regarding the past from this existence, well, first of all, the Four of Coins reversed represents your innate fascination with all of this. The occult sciences, alchemy, perhaps astrology, perhaps just the basis, the planets and their importance, ancient traditions, ancient cultures, practical magic, how one can influence reality through different means, mind over matter. But of course, it's not like one of these subjects specifically sparked your interest. It was more like you had to study, research, see an overall view of all of this so that you can understand your position, you can understand your understanding of this, your unique takes and philosophies, but more importantly, how you can use it practically, how it is that you can take this knowledge, the philosophies, the methodology of the old, the ancient, and also the new, the revolutionary, the futuristic, and use it to influence earthly matters, earthly life, earthly existence. So basically this kind of means that you tried not just to study, but to get a lot of power in your hands. Maybe you had moments both in past existences and also in this life when you were a little bit greedy. You were never satisfied with how much you know. You were never satisfied with your power, with what you can accomplish. You always aimed higher and higher and higher. And perhaps sometimes this actually burned you. Sometimes maybe you accessed powers, spirits, or whatever experiments or studies that you did personally, which got you into, let's say, spiritual trouble, which kind of perhaps reflected the darker side of things and spirituality. Maybe you tried to gather a lot of money, material resources with your skills and powers and your occult knowledge, but because this Four of Coins is reversed, well, either you didn't accomplish it, or you reached the conclusion that certain things are not really meant for earthly existence. So that which is only above has to stay above and never come below. And that is which very, very below must never come to the surface, because nothing good will come of it. But either way, the overall picture is that on your quest to attain knowledge and power, you had a lot of up and down moments. You had moments when your faith and your belief was shattered, but you also had moments when you witnessed that which most human eyes cannot witness. So it is basically a lot of important lessons learned about power, responsibility, and that the spiritual, the magical, the occult, many times doesn't follow any rules and patterns. It has a mind of its own which cannot be understood, controlled. It is eternal mystery, and it will always be like that. So you kind of had to give up your desire to be able to control it. And you also had to fight for it not to control you. And what this means is that a lot of times on your journey, your faith and your trust in your power shattered and was totally razed to the ground, and you had to pick up yourself once more from the ashes, from the ruins. You had to have moments of spiritual rebirth. The next card, the Judgment, depicts your present, what is going on in your life, on your journey right now. And without a doubt, the Judgment represents the spiritual awakening. Basically, even the graphic depiction of this card is so very symbolic. Your spirit is rising up to the heavens. You are seeing a totally different side of the world, of the universe, of the spirit, of existence itself, which you could never ever gaze upon, not in this lifetime, not in your past lifetimes, despite your great knowledge and power, despite your mastery and everything that you have accomplished. This is exactly why you had to be born in this lifetime, because this present timeline is the one which gives you the resolution that your soul always wanted to experience, to hold, to see, to live. All of your previous lifetimes were just preparing your mind, your soul, the rational soul, so to speak. It is a term which is used in the spirituality of my culture, which represents the divine element in the mental sphere. So you had to learn all of that so that in this lifetime you could lose all of your previous knowledge and faith, and everything can shatter, and you can bear witness to something so very unique that without your previous experiences you could not be able to process it. This awakening card represents that right now you're operating on such high frequencies that on one hand nothing makes sense to you, but not in a negative way. This is where you're just receiving downloads, you're receiving knowledge, you're receiving information which defies everything. This is where the divine spark inside of you is ruling over all of your being in its integrity. And of course, you are changing, evolving, upgrading, living certain states of consciousness which are nearly miraculous. Your faith, your beliefs, your knowledge, everything that the divine communicates to you becomes real, alive in front of your eyes right now. So basically, in the present moment, you are witnessing a very miraculous, a very mysterious phase of your journey, which basically awakens you to your true self. So no further explanation is needed. This is where you're 100% in divine hands. Whatever is happening in your life, it is divinely orchestrated and guided. Something that you asked is being delivered, created, or better said, co-created. But this is the phase where the ball is in the divine's court, so it's doing what it has to do. But it's so mysterious. It is so blissful in a way, almost miraculous, that you might even be beyond yourself right now. And where this is leading you, the Six of Wands, triumph, victory, accomplishment, being your own savior, owning your true power. Whatever the divine promised you is gonna be delivered. Whatever you are following, or whatever the divine communicated to you specifically, or a prophecy, something is gonna come into existence which is very, very, very important to you. And ultimately, your archetype is the moon. Now, what this means is that you're insanely intuitive and empathic, but you never actually could see your true power exactly because of this Four of Coins, the technicality, the different philosophies and principles which had nothing really to do with you. Yes, it is the wisdom of old, ancient cultures. Yes, it was all inspired by, let's say, angelic beings or extraterrestrials or the divine intelligence. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use any or all of that in your own unique spirituality. You need to know all of that, of course, to have the general knowledge, to be able to understand the journey's path and spirituality of other people. But you personally are way too unique and distinctive. You are way beyond all of that knowledge, practicalities, calculations, numerology, astrology, alchemy, whatever that is. You're way beyond that. That all of that is earthly because it's like translated divine information for people, for humans. But your true power is way beyond that. So that is why this moon card represents your true intuitive power. Your soul is so very strong. It is so very knowledgeable, if that makes sense, that your human mind, regardless of how sophisticated and vast it is, it can never ever embody that which you truly are at the very core of your being. So the only way you can actually be who you are, the only way you can embody your true spiritual path is if you just surrender to the intelligence and divinity inside of you. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, sometimes it's not logical, sometimes you cannot translate it into human language, human terms. Sometimes your deepest visions, dreams and prophecies cannot be humanly understood. But that is exactly why you're living right now the judgment, the awakening, so that you can trust even your wildest feelings, your wildest intuition. That is why you're being set up to witness a big miraculous moment when something impossible that the universe or the divine promised you is gonna become real. So that you have everything that you need in the future to trust your true intuitive feelings, to trust that the divine can immediately, instantly download stuff inside of you. And you don't even have to worry that much about the translation, because when you need it, it will just come to you. You are learning to trust almost blindly the divine, and not through faith, not through philosophies and all of that, but simply through the communication that takes place inside of you through your soul. And the guidance here is really simple. There is no guidance because you are already guided. It is happening. It is everything that you are living, experiencing in the present moment leads you to there. You are in the hands of the universe right now. So all of the guidance that you need is gonna be provided. So basically all I can say, don't fear it. Don't panic when it doesn't make sense, when you feel let down, because the universe is actually teaching you how to trust it, so you're okay, believe it or not. For those of you who have chosen the third pile, your cards are the Seven of Coins, the Ace of Cups, Eight of Pentacles, and the Knight of Swords. The Seven of Coins represents your past, Ace of Cups your present, the Eight of Coins your future, and the Knight of Swords is your archetype and your spiritual mission. Now the Seven of Coins is a bittersweet card, really, because first of all it represents that in your childhood, when you were younger, and this could even go on until very recently, you lived a karma of self-sacrifice. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean bad karma. This doesn't mean that you're paying for something. What this actually means is that your soul was created, and when I say this, understand the big picture as in an infinite cosmos. The infinity of all, even beyond the human sphere, even beyond Earth, even beyond time, etc., is a support. So through your existence, through your soul, through your spirit, everything that you are, even beyond human conditioning, the universe simply fixes reality, helps other creations, it nurtures, it heals, it readjusts, it connects, for example, two worlds, two sides. It delivers messages, it delivers information. So this means that you are someone who was always very connected to the angelic realms. There is a very strong angelic part of your being. There is a distinctive purity and innocence about you. But of course, I'm not saying that you are an actual angel, because that would limit you from actually doing the mission that your soul was given. You need to be immersed into planes of existence, spheres, etc., where the angelic realm does not have access. And when you immerse into it, you can just download the universe's highest intention, frequencies, healing, patching up anomalies, etc. So you're here to provide a balance. And you're also extremely passionate about this. It is basically your existence itself. And needless to say, this is what you've always done in every past life, in every past existence, one way or another. You still were either a healer, a helper, an oracle, a communicator, someone who united the heavens and earth through either an act of spirituality, a ritual, a communication like an oracle, a prophecy, or you were a healer. And when I say healer, that can also mean very down-to-earth healing, like a doctor, a nurse, a medicine woman, a midwife, etc. So you also had very strong earthly, not so spiritual experiences of how to heal and restore. But of course, what everything has in common, well, it is also self-sacrifice. It is based on mercy, compassion, and the willingness to give your energy to others, even when it's in your disadvantage. Naturally, even the past in this lifetime was full of acts of self-sacrifice. Now that can mean so very many things. Helping your parents when you were a child, and this might mean the sacrifice of your innocence and childhood. And this was the reason why you were born in such a family, that they needed that sweet, innocent light of yours to give them at least a chance to survive, not to become drowned totally by whatever negativity ran in the family or whatever bad karma ran in the family. Basically, you saved them, and not just their human selves, but their souls, believe it or not. Even if you don't see this as a success, well, you still saved them from something much. Without you in their lives, it would have been true doom and gloom. But this can also represent your job, where you kind of always chose a profession where you served others, even if that simply means being in a shop and serving customers. You did it your way, where you helped them, you inspired them, you smiled at them, you made them feel better. So maybe in the lives of a lot of people who you might not even know and suspect, you made a huge difference. Not to mention your relationship, friendships, partnerships, Everything in your life was about serving others, making others happy, helping them, saving them, supporting them, preventing suicide, etc. So basically you can imagine that you needed a lot of spiritual strength in order to accomplish this. You needed a lot of knowledge. You needed basically everything. Both knowledge, faith, maturity, empathy, powers, spiritual powers, because you just could not accomplish this on your own, and you did. You were pretty much alone in this. You carried a massive cross all your life. And naturally that 7 of coins is a very, very delayed karmic energy, as in, yes, you have a lot of good karma because of that, but you also have a lot of bad karma because you took this self-sacrifice to extreme limits, and you were close more than once to actually losing your life or your future because of that. And also, from a karmic and spiritual perspective, you never actually felt rewarded for any of this, because no one ever done the same for you, or even if someone tried, well, they didn't really succeed. And that's a whole other story, because that might have left even bigger scars on you, because you are someone who appreciates good intent more than anything in the world. But you also have to learn that sometimes good intent and love is just not enough. And if you would ever think about yourself that you're not a loving person, well, forget that, because you have this maturity to know that love is a feeling, and what you do with love is the gesture and action that you take. And you do take a lot of action for others, so let that be the mirror for you personally, who you are and what you're doing. But anyway, none of this matters is because you had to stop this. The karma of self-sacrifice that you were born with had to stop. It had to come to a closure. And I do see that it actually happened, the closure, even though you didn't get the karmic payments that you needed in order to recover, yet still your present is this Ace of Cups. This means true, authentic, real, not just illusionary, not just wishful thinking, not just toxic positivism, but real, true, authentic self-love. You are learning to love yourself, to take care of yourself, to treat yourself with respect, and you're learning that basically the universe wants this more than anything in your life. This is the essence of all the divine guidance you ever got. Yes, you help others. Yes, you dedicate yourself to the greater good. But that is in your power. What isn't in your power, to do the same for yourself. And this is exactly what you had to learn to do. And in order for you to accomplish this, the universe had to apply a very unconventional tactic where it had to withdraw its support, its guidance, its strength, in order for you to have no choice but to look deep inside of yourself and see how valuable you are, how beautiful you are, and to lose all the self-victimization tendencies and thoughts and self-defeating patterns, for you to realize that until you don't give the Caesar what is rightfully the Caesar's, and the divine inside of you what belongs to the divine, it will get you nowhere, and you won't be able to terminate that karma. So right now you're in this massive, massive self-healing, self-regenerative, self-love work, and you're almost there. You've almost achieved to purify this Ace of Cups, your soul. You almost got rid of all the past. You've almost became the person who you were always meant to become. So you're very, very close. You're just one step away of a massive miracle. And why I say this? Well, if you learn to love yourself as much as the universe loves and trusts you, and you become aware of it, and you build it inside of your consciousness, you know this 24/7, even in your deepest dream, at the moment when this becomes your truth, it will manifest. There is no other way. And love has a lot of power. And when that power actually manifests, that changes lives. That is miraculous. That is divine justice, divine love and care at its finest. You're just one tiny step away from this. And this 8 of coins is your future. How truly wonderful. 8 of coins is the teacher, it is the guide, it is the master who teaches their know-how, their knowledge, everything that they went through in order to get where they are, to have the experience, to have the mastery to others. So what this means is that the journey that you took of being a healer, an inspirational figure, a support, sacrificing for others has come to an end. You might not really feel it that way, because with this Ace of Cups you're so full of compassion and empathy, goodwill and good intent, and basically love for all life and sentient living beings, that you could not even imagine anything else apart from you doing this work. Yet the universe upgrades all of this picture, whereas wouldn't it be even better for you to train or teach or share your knowledge to other young healers and other people who are walking exactly your life path, to make sure that they don't suffer the way you did, that they don't have the scars that you do, and they find that inspiration, the support, the friendship that you never had. If you help others achieve this Ace of Cups state that you are embodying right now, imagine how much good that will do in the world when you help, train, teach, guide, support, and ultimately heal future healers. Imagine the positive influence this will represent in the world. And even though you might not feel ready right now, and it's not in your intention or any of your plans to become a teacher or mentor or guide of any kind, you really don't need to worry. The universe will set it up. This 8 of coins can either represent a school, or an institution, or any kind of organization. So basically, you won't have to do all of that work to set it up, etc. You will just need to say, yes, I'll join you, and embrace this new lifestyle. And ultimately, this Knight of Swords represents your archetype. This is so very clear. The Knight of Swords is almost like Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, the divine messenger, the divine postman, the broadcaster, the public speaker, the oracle, the guide, let's say fortune teller in its most lowest expression possible. It is simply someone who connects the divine plane to the earthly one and delivers the information. Information is creation. Information is power. Information is the blueprint of everything that exists in the material plane. And ultimately, when you heal, when you change, when you regenerate, when you guide people, you do it through information. It is basically like the command line you insert either in the unconscious of a person or into collective consciousness, but that will execute that. And it takes for a person to truly embody the Ace of Cups true goodwill, compassion, empathy, and discipline, because let's not forget, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that is what you had to learn in the past. So this purity, this inner alchemy will make sure that you will insert healing, regenerative, and divinely inspired commands into whatever it is, through your messages, through your work, through your teachings, through your writings, through your channelings, whatever that is, So basically, if anything, you are the guardian of wisdom. So connecting to the divine planes is so easy for you because this is what you were created to do in any shape or form that your existence might take. So the guidance here is a little bit ironical because since you are the messenger of the gods, that is your archetype, all you need to do is listen to your own wisdom, listen and follow the advices you personally give to other people, because everything that you need to do is right there. Of course, this is difficult and complicated because you cannot be as objective as you want to be. But everything, every guidance that you need is already within you, and chances are you do give them to other people or you do share them one way or another. So just read back, listen back, or just analyze your own thoughts, whatever you're sharing with others, and it's there. The information, guidance, future, the plan, whatever is coming is there. For those of you who have chosen the fourth pile, your cards are the 8 of water, the 9 of water, the lovers, and the 10 of water. That's a lot of water right there. So this implicitly means that you are a soul who truly learned to master and embody the spiritual symbolism of water, and that means in a way creativity, but in a nurturing sense. So the inspiration behind creativity, may that be art or anything, the idea, the feeling. Of course, it means everything that has to do with emotional world, everything that has to do with emotional intelligence and psychology. You might be a very Neptunian kind of person because Neptune is the ruling planet of the element, the spiritual element of water. So this means daydreamer, this means big idealist, very, very immersed into feelings, emotional states, very curious about the world of emotions, very, very artistic, into any kind of expression of the spirit through art. May that be painting, a style, design. Music plays a very important part of your journey, of your life. And implicitly, this makes you a really, really powerful, masterful, strong, empathic being. Your empathy when you're at the peak of your skill and potential is almost telepathic. So you're extremely strong. But now let's get back to your reading. The 8 of water represents the past, 9 of water present, lovers future, and the 10 of water your archetype and your spiritual mission. Now this 8 of water, which is the 8 of cups in tarot, might not be the most healthy energy and expression of your skills, because it means that you've always been attracted and had this fascination to spirituality, and also you were extremely eclectic. So everything that was supernatural, everything that was a little, at least just a tiny step beyond nature, so to speak, stirred up your curiosity. So you had a lot of research, a lot of study, a lot of reading, perhaps even a lot of experiments. Maybe you were fascinated with otherworldly beings, spirits, ghosts, extraterrestrials. And you were very, very flexible in the sense that maybe you didn't have a path which was set in stone. You might have basically just generalized everything and tried and experienced a little bit of everything that has to do with spirituality, including perhaps the not so pleasant sides of it. Maybe you were someone who was fascinated also by the darker sides, by the dangerous sides, like perhaps demonology, poltergeists, everything that, people, humans, kind of perceived as a spiritual threat to them. And you were never a kind of person who just believed any warning, believed anything, good or bad, because someone wrote it, because someone thought it, someone believed it. You had to kind of see for yourself or make up your own mind of what it means for you personally. So this might represent some experimentation. And this was how you kind of discerned fantasy from fact, fiction, make-believe, or where certain people kind of give certain spiritual truths or energies a totally different shape or form, so that people find it much easier to believe in them or to process it or whatever. But you are the kind of person who is very against that. You want truth, and you want basically not to be led on a false path. You are someone who wants a no BS attitude, as in explain the way it truly is, don't sugarcoat it, don't dress it up. Either it's real or it's not real, end of story. And I do believe that in certain parts of your past, you were quite aggressive with this. It had to be either black or white, either real or not. So you might have been very critical of religion, especially mainstream religion, because you couldn't see the big truth in it, you couldn't see the authenticity in it. But of course, this Eight of Water also represents that in very many cases, exactly this truth-seeking attitude of yours confused you and led you astray much more than if you would have taken things much more less seriously. As in, a symbol is a symbol and it is what it is. So there were a lot of moments when you felt lost, when you just didn't know what truth and fantasy was. You couldn't separate fiction from fact, and that's why you could never embody your own inner truth, because you were extremely critical with everything, especially yourself. You had impossible standards set out. Like, if you're truly spiritual, then why can't you do this, that, and that? Why won't angels communicate with you? This is just an example. In a very straightforward, clear manner. And, these are just examples that your standards were a little bit misaligned. Way too extreme, way too dominated by the rationality and logic of the mind, which didn't resonate with who you were at all, because you are actually someone who has a lot of emotional intelligence. But you didn't know that about yourself. You tried to make everything as rational as possible. And ultimately, this Eight of Cups also represents that you had a lot of psychological disturbances of your own. Other people didn't really get who you were, didn't understand you. You had a lot of moments of depression, a lot of moments when what you felt and what you shown others were totally different, and this led to blockages. There were moments when you closed your heart because you didn't know how empathic you were, and then that your pain is actually something you picked up from other people. You didn't really know who you were. You thought that you were this wishy-washy person, this victim, this person who can never achieve anything, who is not successful, not even spiritually. So basically, this Eight of Water is you had to leave all of that behind. You had to leave the big philosophical searches for the greater truth. You had to leave behind the expectation that everything has to be logical and make sense. You had to leave behind all your personal dramas, all of the pain and suffering that others basically inflicted upon you. You had to leave behind toxic people, friendships, connections, jobs, things which really, really upset you and caused you a lot of pain because of your empathy. So slowly but surely, the last 8 years of your life, you discovered who you truly were. You managed to make sense of what spirituality, what magic, what mysticism, what the world of the soul means for you personally. You found a way to filter all of the truths and philosophies and researches and everything that you integrated into your life in the past. And that is why right now you're embodying this 9 of water. Now the 9 of water has a very special symbolism in this particular oracle deck. It represents when a person becomes aware that the universe is a living being. When the universe is alive in everything, it is the oneness of all things. So whereas the 8 of water represents, a lot of power, a lot of knowledge, a lot of skill mastery, but feeling totally lost with all of it, 9 of water represents being so very safe and found within yourself, because you know without even a tiny spark of a doubt, without any question, without a spark of disbelief, that you are truly, literally, in every sense possible, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, physically, part of the living, breathing universe. You're almost like an organ of a whole, of something which has infinite integrity in its oneness. And it is this connection, because you don't just know it for no reason. You're living it. You're experiencing it. Things are happening in your life right now. You are at the peak of your spiritual journey when you witness, when you observe, when you take in, when you feel, when you're so mature, but this maturity is given to a childlike innocence. So basically you are almost your most divine version. You don't need all the facts, all the figures. You don't need to know everything rationally, logically, because you feel everything. You feel infinite. You feel that you are actually the universe existing through your own personal dimension, both within and without. And ultimately, your future, where all of this is guiding you, this is where we have the Lovers card. And the symbolism of the Lovers is very, very simple. Now, if you are someone who is single and you just know because you feel it, that it is in your destiny that a soulmate, a twin flame, or whatever you call it, has to be part of your life, well, it symbolizes that union. And if this is your case, well, this union is so very important, because if you can share all of this that you're experiencing, your connection, the depth of what you are experiencing right now with another soul who is just like you, nothing ever can actually disconnect you from this state. This is where that 9 of Cups, being connected to the oneness of all things in existence, is gonna be a permanent part of your life. Because it won't be just you and the divine mind or heart or whatever that is, but it's gonna be you and another person exactly like you. So the universe will be that much more alive in that other person, in your partner, in your twin flame, or whatever this is. So symbolically speaking, it is almost like being married, being in a romantic partnership with the universe itself. So to feel it and to have this very powerful spiritual connection is one thing, but for that connection to even take a very, I don't even know how to, physical shape in the form of your partner, or an even, let's say, more personal shape, that another being who has physical body is there in your life every second of every day, who also sees you the same way, who also sees the divine, the universe alive inside of you, well, that is simply bliss on earth. This is where nothing that life can possibly throw at you will seem even remotely hard when you are in this union and alliance. It's like the physical world, and with all of its troubles, problems, obstacles, won't really exist for you guys. And basically that is like living in your own personal heaven. Now, for those of you who either have a partner or are hermit and a partner is out of the question, or simply a romantic partnership is not really in the picture, this Lover's card can mean that your connection to the divine is going to be even stronger, and it will take some kind of palpable or physical, or better said, manifested aspect. This can be some event, something inner, something outer, but what matters is that you're gonna be able to take this to a whole other level, where you don't just live it, enjoy it, and it means the world to you, and of course you worked for it and everything, blah blah blah, so it's yours to have and enjoy, but this is where you also do something with it, something big, something important, but of course something that the divine will inspire you to do. And what I'm actually picking up here, even though it might have nothing to do with the Lover's card itself, maybe open a resort, maybe open a spiritual healing center, or buy a piece of land and grow some kind of food or plants, or work with nature and create a kind of sanctuary for other people like yourself. For example, so they can discover themselves, who they are, their connections, and they don't have to go through the hardships that you did psychologically and spiritually when you were younger, and when you were searching for the meaning of life and who you are, etc. So it is something, a very specific mission that the divine will give you, and naturally the means to do it and all of that. But it is very, very personal to you. So this is the only thing I can pick up. And last but not least, the Ten of Water is your archetype and spiritual mission. And this is also very simple and straightforward. The Ten of Water simply says that you are an incredibly powerful and ancient soul who came here for two different reasons. Well, one is to do exactly what you're doing right now, the Nine of Water, to hold the frequency, to take the divine energy in you, and, by living it, experiencing it, you basically fill the planet with a specific type of frequency, which is something that the divine needs right now. And the other reason is for you to kind of reconnect with your humanity and with your human experiences, because maybe an extremely long time, even though time is relative or it doesn't even exist, because you were, an ancient soul, someone very, very powerful, very relevant, you kind of disconnected from what it means to be a human, live like a human, live amongst humans. So you came here to refresh this part of you, this memories or experiences, and to simply reconnect. And this is exactly why all the bad and the good was part of your life story. Because human experience is also about pain, suffering, believing in illusions, being deceived, being intoxicated and poisoned by the negativity of other people, etc. So that was part of your journey, and you would not have it any other way. And last but not least, because right now, in this present moment, we're seeing such a massive world change taking place before our eyes, as an ancient soul, perhaps hundreds, thousands of years ago, you played your part to lead everything to this. And now, naturally, why shouldn't you witness it, observe it? It is your righteous reward to be able to come here and see how it folds out in a very down-to-earth and personal manner. So simply observing it, witnessing it, is something that you wanted to do for yourself, and you're doing it. For those of you who have chosen the fifth pile, your cards are the Eight of Wands, the Hangman reversed, the Empress, and the Star card. The Eight of Wands represents the past, the Hangman reversed the present, the Empress the future, and the Star the archetype and your spiritual mission. Now the Eight of Wands is a really positive card, but this doesn't really make your past very easy, because the Eight of Wands is a card of higher information. It is study. It is a lot of research. It is a lot of multitasking, so to speak, where all of these wands go in separate directions, yet still they serve the same purpose. It is basically your desire breaking into a lot of different modus operandi, as in how to accomplish that. So you might be a person who has multi-discipline in so many different ways. You might also be someone who finished a university, has some kind of higher education, or was trained to be a highly skilled professional. This Eight of Wands is also a card which represents a very, very strong intellect, a very powerful mind. This is where also the higher functions of the intellectual sphere are also naturally available to you. And the higher functions, well, it is basically the highest possible philosophies, the highest octaves of knowledge. It is also basically divine knowledge, when you're able to find out questions, to impossible to answer questions, by connecting to the divine mind through either meditation or whatever it is that you do. So this kind of means that it wasn't just spirituality which was very important to you, but all sides of it, even science, like practical science. Because you might have been someone who believed that everything spiritual can ultimately be explained in a very rational way, as long as we don't set it in stone. We have to leave a certain flexibility of the mind and our understanding, because we cannot perceive something in a very finite way, that which is infinite in its essence. So, in order for you to master all of this, well, this was a lot of mental, intellectual, spiritual, psychological work. You also might have been someone who traveled to different cultures, different countries. Maybe you lived in another country overseas. Or even if you didn't manage to move, you might have been studying the culture of different countries, or know foreign languages, are multilingual, have a lot of culture in your blood. So all in all, this represents so very many different type of experiences, intellectual, spiritual, material, professional. This also represents that throughout your life you might have been involved in different kind of projects. You might have tried to do something with your intellect, with your knowledge, with everything that you basically learned to master. And, I'm not saying that you failed or your efforts weren't successful, but this Eight of Wands is a card which means as quickly as it comes together, as quickly as it is born in your mind, and then of course, whatever the practical application of that is, it is just as quickly as it disappears. So, the energy of the Eight of Wands is not meant to last. It is not meant to be permanent. It is a very instantaneous and quick moving energy. So basically you have done so very many things, a lot of activities, but you never actually enjoyed them. You never were in a longer period of stability. You never managed to truly enjoy life. You never actually managed to physically, as a human being, live and enjoy the smaller or bigger pleasures of life, because your focus, your intention, and your energy, and all of your skills and talents were invested into so very many different opposite directions. You tried a lot of things and they took up time and energy. And also another negative side of this Eight of Wands is when you multitask or you try to achieve something, you invest all of your energy into it. And by the time you get to the achievement part, you're drained. You're basically dry of all power and energy, because you had to learn how to control your passion. You also had to learn how to trust your non-linear logic, your perceptions, your intuition, the true genius inside of you, because you might have always had the tendency to compare your own success, your situation, or everything to those of others. But at the same time, there were certain kind of comparisons which were healthy and you should have made and you didn't. Like, for example, you were like much more intelligent and smarter than a specific person who you knew, and yet success came to them so easily and not to you. And you might not have taken a very good look at their background, where if they had all the support of their friends and maybe someone very in a big position, well, of course it's easy. But you also should have compared your own situation to those of the greatest minds of humanity, like, for example, Einstein and other very powerful visionary scientists, deep thinkers, where they were so unique that at the first stages of their lives, they were ridiculed and rejected. It took some time for the whole world to catch up with them and to get to their level so that they can understand the genius and the visionary spirit inside of them. And that is your situation. That is the truth of who you are. You were way beyond your time, your years, in everything that you ever done. So your mind, your intellect, your soul was way more mature than your physical condition. Like, for example, in primary school, you were already philosophizing about things which maybe a 40-year-old person starts to open up to. Or another example, maybe you were 8, 10, but you already understood ancient philosophies and their true meaning. So you were way, way, way ahead of your peers, of basically the whole world. And yet another expression of this Eight of Wands is so many times you quantum leaped in your life without even knowing it. And that means drastic, instant life changes where life might not make any sense at all for a period of time. And no matter how you might want to fault yourself or others or life or karma, you couldn't find any logic, because quantum leap is something totally unique where you just exit a state and enter into almost a new dimension. And this happened a lot of times in your life. So that's why your past didn't seem as successful as it should. Now this hangman reverse represents your present. And it's really a positive card, because the hangman would represent the dark night of the soul, when you're isolated, when in your cocoon, dwelling on the problems, on the hurts, the pains, the past, the traumas. And no doubt that you had an episode like that very recently, maybe 2019, maybe 2020. But either way, because it's reversed, you've already done that. Maybe you know everything that I said until this moment, because you truly processed everything and you align to the wisdom that earthly life and even spirituality should not be lived just in the mind, but there is absolutely no reason why someone shouldn't integrate it into its normal human life, everyday life. But that kind of involves learning in the most profound way the virtue of patience, and that is what the universe taught you. And basically, most of your suffering came because of impatience. And that impatience isn't something that you could control. It was just how powerful your mind was. You're a genius, so what do you expect? But since this hangman is reversed right now, you're breaking free. You're rebelling against all limitations of your life. You're awakening to owning your true power, your true brilliance, the very strong power of your intellect. Your life is opening up to yet another quantum leap, but you already know that this is coming. That is where mind is gonna be over matter in quite a literal way for you personally. That is when you'll be allowed to manifest freely. Because until this moment, your manifestation was blocked. Because how can someone who doesn't know that they're a genius be allowed to manifest? That would be foolish. But after that person learned everything they needed to do, and responsibility and patience, that is when you're allowed to embody who it is that you truly are. So what's coming next? The future is naturally the Empress. Empress is basically manifestation. Manifesting everything that you missed out on. All the pleasures. May that be love. May that be corporal pleasure. May that be smell, taste, touch, visiting places, enjoying your life, holidays, relaxing, doing business, finally using your intellect in a way that is suitable for you, being also a very attractive person, even physically, doing something practical and joyful with your magnetism. In other words, allowing the brilliance and the divine gift that you received through your intellect, through your mind, through your ability to figure things out like lightning, and that speed of yours, and the ability to just quantum leap and leap and leap, with the difference that now you know it and you master it. So allowing all of this to be a part of your physical life, your earthly experience, and enjoying it. Having joy, pleasure, love, everything that makes a human being happy in your life. Embracing your happiness, not allowing your mind to leap you away from happiness or to go in 10 million different directions, but being focused on living in the now, in the present. And finally, the star card represents your archetype. Well, the star is Aquarius. It is the big thinker. It is the genius. It is someone with such a brilliant mind that their lucky star is actually within them. It is the light of their consciousness. It is their visions. It is their highest possible philosophies. It is in their ingenuity. And if you translate it into spirituality, well, it means that you are someone so unique that you are born to revolutionize spirituality. So you are someone who is gonna create the next, the new, the revolutionary in spiritual philosophies and currents and whatever. You might be a person who will use this lifetime to unite science with spirituality, and when the two unite, you can imagine that what a science and all the information and the knowledge and the technology we can accomplish, guided by morality, compassion, humanitarianism, and non-intervention when it is the case, can do, not just for our species, but for many different spiritual realms. And ultimately, well, the star card is very straightforward. You might be either someone who is in touch with extraterrestrials, or maybe you are an extraterrestrial spirit or soul or consciousness incarnated here in a human form. So you have a lot of connections with other beings, other maybe civilizations. This also explains your intellect. This also explains the power of your mind. And also, you might be someone who will set up like a proper contact with these beings. Well, this concludes today's reading. I do hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. Thank you so much for listening to my work, for all the likes, shares, and your comments. If you'd like to support my channel, you can find my PayPal link in the description of the video below. And with these being said, thank you again for your trust and for listening. Wish everyone infinite blessings and abundance on your spiritual path.